Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Hardly Thinking, man. It's David here. So, I wish I could go out there and ask people what they think about this, but again, I'm a coward, so please subscribe. Venezuelan president was arrested apparently by United States, and they went for him right to his home country, picked him up and brought him back in. And I think at this point, the fact that he was not able to actively defend himself, or at least hide from the United States in his country, let him rot in jail. The media is for some reason trying to be like, it's not about the drugs, it's about the oil. So before we start reacting to this Sky News, I think this was a little bit before it actually happened, I think a week before it happened. We are going to see which country traffics the most drugs to United States and see if it is Venezuela. Okay, the primary trafficker is Mexico. Let me see. Mexico generally regarded as the main foreign source and transit country for most illegal drugs entering the United States, especially heroin, methamphetamine, marijuana, fentanyl. Marijuana is not a drug. And significant share of cocaine. Cocaine, sorry. And then there is Colombia. Colombiano. The main producer of cocaine. Cocaine. So that's number two. Other players. Jesus Christ, that we're already in the category of other players, bro. We are not even. I'm not even seeing Venezuela. China is kind of fucking a lot of people up, to be honest. Then other South American producers: Peru, Bolivia. Bro, let me. From what you can see, have you seen Venezuela anywhere so far? Okay. Venezuela. Tondido plays the secondary or transit role for some, but does not approach the scale Mexico or Colombia in supplying the drugs to the United States market. So why is Venezuela Trump target? Let's see what ChatGPT says. They say U.S. claims against Maduro and Venezuelan officials. Okay, that is the president and the military have been accused of trafficking drugs. I think that is how some of these governments actually fund themselves. The moment you're choking in sanctions, you're likely to start selling cocaine and other drugs. What of oil, Baba? What of oil? No, not oil. I'm typing like Trump right now. Yes! Venezuela is a target mostly because it has oil. Oil that belongs to Venezuelans. Oil that is not actually doing shit for them because their country cannot produce that oil to a certain degree that benefits them and sell it because they're also under sanctions. So it's such that the people who have much less oil are doing far much better than Venezuela. I don't know, bro. Like it sucks to see yourself as someone who is in a position where like you're better than someone, but you have so much, and the person that has so less is doing so much better. You cannot. Do Venezuelans really know what they have in their country? Anyway, let's watch this and react to it.
Donald Trump is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela, the main reason the US is kind of looking at tankers off the coast of Venezuela comes back to drugs, the trade, the smuggling of illegal drugs out of Venezuela. What if it's not just that? Maybe there's something else going on. What if it's partly about oil?
Partly about oil, or entirely about oil.
You might be thinking, why does America even need Venezuelan oil?
British accent is sexy, for real.
Well, you've got to understand your point, because if you look at just total oil production, look, this is up until 2005, the US was there, Venezuela was there, Saudi Arabia was there. But as you probably know, since then, everything has changed. Look,
let's see.
American output
Oh,
has gone through the roof,
fuck.
way above Saudi Arabia, way above Saudi.
America is right now the biggest oil producer, that I know. But then look at Venezuela.
Arabia. And Venezuela has gone basically to the floor. And that's kind of post-Chavez, Maduro. They're one of the minnows now, and I think 21st biggest producer in the world. So again, that question, why should America care? Well, in the US, that big rise is largely down to this. It's down to the shale revolution. So you've got fracking all around the US producing extraordinary amounts of crude oil. And here's where we get to the interesting bit. So if you kind of look at crude oil, there are various different types of crude in different parts of the world.
All right, now there is a new information here. So perhaps America has certain type of crude oil that may be good, but may not be as good as the crude oil elsewhere, and they want that. And they will lie about drugs and freedom and communism and all the shit in the world to get it. Countries like Venezuela, you always go against the United States, and then you all of a sudden it's sanctions after sanctions after sanctions and shit.
There's actually kind of various different ways you can categorize it, but one way you can look at it is look at the kind of density. So you're basically looking at how thick that crude is, and when I say thick, I mean literally how thick. This is showing you global production broken down by the density of that oil. And so you've got the kind of medium stuff, and this is probably, if you've got kind of image in your mind of what crude oil looks like, it's a bit like this, you know, it's kind of black, but it's not too viscous, it flows around. But there's other stuff as well. So this is light crude, and it kind of almost looks like a smoothie, doesn't it?
Yeah, is this what United States has? Okay, I don't know. It does look like a smoothie.
This is still crude oil, but down to the kind of geological and the biological conditions in the ground when it was being formed, you know, hundreds of millions of years ago, it comes out looking a bit different. And so that's light. You've also got heavy stuff. So it's kind of relatively small in global production, but this is gloopy, super viscous stuff, heavy oil. So heavy, medium, light. The key thing here is you get it out of the ground, it may look like that, but ultimately you still need it to go into, you know, someone's car, or indeed, you know, be turned into chemicals. Basically, you need to process it, and that processing, that happens in places like this, in refineries. And there are refineries all over the world, of course. There are refineries all over the US as well. There's kind of more than 100 of them. And if we kind of look at where those refineries are, well, so there's some in California. So the history in America, actually, historically, a lot of the early California...
Bro, this is historical lesson premium. And then you'll go to Sky News Australia, and they'll be giving you a different spin. Like Sky News UK and Sky News Australia are usually two different. Sky News Australia is just pure right wing. They're so pro Donald Trump, they're Trumpier than Fox News. Then you come to the Sky News UK, it's kind of striking the balance. It's kind of playing in between. I think maybe laws are different. I don't know.
Oil, that was the heavy, gloopy stuff. And if you look at kind of some of the refineries in America, so here are some of the refineries. There's one in LA there. These are the 10 biggest. You've got some up here around kind of towards Canada. We'll kind of come to that in a second. But a lot of them are down there, kind of Texas, Louisiana, on the coast. And here's the critical thing. These refineries are primarily set up for heavy oil, for taking that gloopy stuff and turning it into gasoline.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Products.
Okay.
Here's where things get interesting. And remember that chart I showed you a moment ago, the one which showed kind of shale oil and how it kind of went through the roof? The oil that's generally produced with shale oil, the fracking oil, that comes out of the ground mostly in the light form. So it's the smoothie. It's sometimes actually even clear. It comes out of the ground clear rather than black. And that's the majority of American production right now. Shale oil tends to be light stuff. And actually, that's kind of going back 10 years. Look at where we are now. Look at those bars. In the last few years, the amount of light oil being produced in the US has gone up and up and up, and the amount of heavy stuff has gone down. But back to those refineries. They need to be fed. If America's going to have gasoline, it needs to feed those refineries with heavy oil. So if you look at the kind of imports coming into America...
If they manage to take that oil from Venezuela and bring it, they better have like oil going for 99 cents or 10 or even 45 cents. Because if they're going to use the power of their military to bring that oil to their shores, and then only a handful of people benefit from it, they better overthrow that government, because their own government is no longer working for them. If this, fine, honestly, I would understand if a government can go to that extent to make the citizens have better lives, but I'm not always convinced that is what the American government does. So yes, it was about drugs. Now I understand it was primarily about oil. They need a certain type of oil, and Donald Trump is going to help them get it.
Even though America is producing just so much oil, more oil than it's ever produced before, it still needs to suck in loads of oil from overseas. And the type of oil we're talking about, it used to be, it's mostly heavy crude. It used to be only 12%. So only 12% of imports were heavy, gloopy crude. Now, it's about 70%. So 70% of the oil coming into America, which it needs to basically keep its economy going, is heavy crude. And where does heavy crude come from? Well, here are some of the big countries where you find most of it. It's Canada and Venezuela. There's one other I'll come to in a second, which we'll come back to.
Is this a way of fucking Canada? Are they going to like cut off Canada or like reduce? Because the Canadian economy kind of is. Canada still has a lot of money, to be honest. Canada, like I realized that the kind of like systems that the government here has put in place for people. Honestly, Canada is a country that gives you the opportunity for upward mobility. That's my opinion.
Where you get most of this heavy crude oil, which is why, back to think about where those refineries are, they're mostly set up kind of, you've got some in the north there to get the heavy oil coming out of Canada, and you've got some around the kind of Louisiana and elsewhere in Texas to get that heavy oil that comes in from Venezuela. That was kind of the way they were set up. And it's really expensive to rebuild these things. You can't just chuck out a refinery very easily overnight.
Oh, okay.
Some came from Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico as well, and that was pretty heavy too. So that's the picture in America. And the upshot is, even though America is producing more and more oil, the imports, this is showing the imports of oil into America, are still really high. And if you break down those imports by the country that stuff is coming from, well, there's Venezuela, and it used to be a decent slug, actually more coming from Venezuela just about than from Canada, just at the turn of the millennium. But now look at what's happened since. Right now, Canada has gone from 15% of all of the US imports of oil to 61%.
Whew. Trump decided he decided to hell with Canada. And as someone who loves Canada, it is, oh God.
61%, and Venezuela is basically next to nothing. But here's what's tantalizing, and here's the reason I think that a lot of people are looking towards Venezuela and thinking, well, there's more to this than just drugs. Look at total oil reserves around the world. The higher these bars are, the more oil there is in the ground, so that hasn't yet been taken out of the ground. So there you've got Saudi, Iran, Iraq, all of the usual suspects. But the biggest of all, and this is according to various different sources, the biggest of all is Venezuela. And what's that oil? It's the heavy, tarry stuff that you might want to put into those American refineries.
You know what? From an economic standpoint, as a left guy, if he used that move to twist the Venezuelan government to sell more oil to United States, or to give United States oil, that was a genius move, to be honest. I'll say it. I just hope it benefits everyone, which is highly unlikely. America is not always known to be a place where everyone tends to benefit.
In the world that has a kind of serious amount of heavy oil other than Canada and Venezuela, and lo and behold, guess where that is? It's Russia. All of which is to say, you know, it matters what kind of oil America needs. It's worth just delving into these kind of nuances, because that helps you understand a little bit more about the backstory of geopolitics.
Politics is a must study. Politics is fun. We should all study politics. Politics is fun. Anyway, subscribe.